Cold Billionaire rejected everyone, until a black woman knocked on his door. He had everything the world told him he should want. Yet every morning, he woke up in silence. Edward Harrington, 40 years old, founder of one of the most profitable tech companies in the world, was by all measurable standards successful. With a net worth that placed him consistently in Forbes' top 50, he had built an empire that spanned continents. His estate stretched over hundreds of acres, nestled in the secluded hills of Connecticut, guarded by iron gates, surveillance, and silence. And still, he was alone. Each day began the same way. At precisely 6:05 a.m., his eyes opened not to an alarm, but to the weight of another day that felt exactly like the last. He sat up in bed, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets that never shared warmth with another person. He swung his feet to the floor. Plush, velvet carpet greeted his skin, a luxury that was meant to comfort, but no longer registered. He moved through his routine with the precision of someone who had mastered control. A hot shower, meticulously steamed suit, black coffee poured into bone china, and financial reports loaded on his tablet. The staff worked silently, almost invisibly, their presence orchestrated so carefully that he could go weeks without hearing a single word inside the house. He had long since stopped questioning the emptiness, the coldness in the rooms, the echo of his footsteps, the way his voice startled him when he spoke aloud. Love. That was a concept reserved for others, for people who hadn't been used, betrayed, commodified. He had seen too much of the worst in people. Gold diggers, liars, opportunists, who smiled with empty promises. Every woman who came close seemed to already know his bank balance before she ever cared to learn his favorite book. So he stopped letting people in. He stopped letting himself hope, and the world noticed. Tabloids nicknamed him the Virgin Billionaire, a title he neither confirmed nor denied. They speculated endlessly. Was he celibate? Asexual? Broken? Strange? He never answered them. Let them talk. He told himself that love was a weakness. That vulnerability was a risk no amount of money could insure. Until the night of the storm. The rain had been falling for hours, a steady, unrelenting downpour that blurred the outlines of the world beyond his windows. Lightning cracked across the sky like broken glass, and thunder rolled through the hills like distant drums. He stood by the window of his study, watching it all unfold, the storm somehow mirroring the quiet chaos in his own chest. He didn't know why he felt more unsettled that night than usual. Maybe it was the loneliness stretching too far. Maybe it was the silence that had begun to feel more suffocating than serene. Or maybe it was fate. Then it happened. The front gate buzzer rang. Edward frowned. No one came to his gate. Ever. He walked to the panel, pressed the button, and the security monitor flickered on. There, through the screen distorted by raindrops, stood a woman. She was drenched, hair slicked to her forehead, clothes soaked and clinging to her body. But she didn't flinch. She held a small boy in her arms, shielding him from the rain with her own body. Her eyes, wide and trembling, looked straight into the camera. "Please," she said, her voice crackling through the speaker. "We just need shelter until the storm passes. Our car broke down. We've been walking for miles. Please help us." His hand froze above the button. Every instinct told him to turn away, to preserve the boundary between his world and the chaos of the outside. But then he heard it, the child crying. It wasn't loud, but it cut through the storm and the screen and pierced him right in the heart. A soft, desperate sob from a boy no older than 5, and in the mother's eyes that no storm could dim, he saw fear, exhaustion, and something else, dignity. He pressed the intercom. "I'm opening the gate," he said. "Follow the drive to the main house. I'll meet you there." His voice didn't sound like his own. As the woman and child disappeared from the monitor, trudging up the long winding path, Edward stood in his grand foyer, staring at the door, His heart beat too loudly. His palms itched with nerves. His sanctuary, his fortress of solitude, was about to be breached. And yet, for the first time in years, it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like something he didn't have a name for. Hope. The knock on the door echoed like a drumbeat through the stillness of the mansion. Edward's heart pounded in his chest as he opened it. Naomi stood there, dripping wet. The boy curled into her shoulder, shivering from the cold. Rain fell behind her like a curtain, trying to keep her out of a world she didn't belong in. He stepped aside. "Come in," he said simply. She nodded her thanks, stepping cautiously onto the marble floors. Mud from her boots smeared the pristine tiles, and she looked down as if expecting to be scolded. Edward noticed this, how she instinctively braced herself for rejection. And something deep within him shifted. "I'll get towels," he murmured, walking quickly to the linen closet. When he returned, she was standing exactly where he'd left her. The boy still nestled against her. He handed her the towels, and she dried her son first. "I'm Naomi," she said, after a long silence. Her voice was soft but carried weight. "Edward," he replied, then added, "Do you need food?" She shook her head. "We ate earlier. Thank you. We just need to rest until morning. We'll be gone before the sun's up." He didn't like the way she said it, like she didn't deserve to stay longer. "You can stay in the guest wing," he said. "It's warm and there are beds." She hesitated, then nodded, murmured thanks again. That night, Edward couldn't sleep. He lay awake, hearing echoes of the boy's cough through the vent. He heard Naomi pacing, soothing him, whispering lullabies. She wasn't just a woman. She was a protector, a force, a storm of her own. In the morning, the rain had stopped. He walked to the guest wing with the intent to offer them breakfast. But they were gone. A note sat on the neatly made bed. "Thank you. You didn't have to open the door, but you did. That kindness won't be forgotten." Naomi beside it sat a small worn notebook. He picked it up, curious. Inside were pages filled with handwritten poems. About invisibility, about fear, about dignity and struggle, about being a black woman in a world that only saw labels. He sat on the edge of the bed, reading one after another, and something inside him cracked open. He didn't know this woman, but somehow, through her words, she had reached places no one else ever had, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. Edward didn't return to his routines that morning. He didn't pour coffee, didn't check emails, didn't read headlines. Instead, he sat on the edge of the bed where Naomi had slept and reread her poems. Each word felt personal, as if it had been written for him. Or maybe it was just that they were real, unfiltered, raw in a way that nothing in his world had been for a very long time. There was one line he kept returning to walk with strength while unseen. "This is the weight of being me." He closed the notebook, but its words stayed with him. He needed to find her, and not because of guilt, or curiosity, or pity, but because she had sparked something within him he hadn't felt in decades. Purpose. He had spent a lifetime building walls so tall, no one dared to climb them. But Naomi hadn't tried to scale them. She simply stood at the door, honest, present, asking nothing. He called his driver. "Find her," he said. "Who, sir?" "The woman from last night. Naomi. She has a child. She said her car broke down. Check the local shelters, churches, clinics, any place someone kind might go." It took 2 days. On the third, his assistant called with an address. A small women's shelter on the outskirts of town. No cameras, no press. Just tired faces and quiet strength. He arrived with no entourage. No suit, no coldness. She was surprised to see him, but not unkind. "I left so you wouldn't feel obligated," she said. "I don't," he replied. "I feel drawn." They talked in the courtyard behind the shelter. Her son played with a plastic truck nearby. Edward asked questions. She answered slowly, carefully, like someone who'd been misunderstood too many times. She was a teacher once, lost her job due to budget cuts. Then her home. Her family had passed. Her world had shrunk, and she had fought for every inch of it. I didn't come to ask for anything, she said. I don't want to be anyone's project. You're not, he said. You're the first person who's spoken to me like a person in years. Naomi was cautious, but she agreed to see him again, and so it began. Not a romance, not yet, but a friendship. They met in public places, talked about books, about their lives, about what it meant to feel invisible in a world obsessed with image. She didn't treat him like a billionaire. She called out his blind spots, challenged him when he was wrong, praised him when he listened, and he did. He listened. Truly, weeks passed. He invited her and her son to visit the estate again. Not to stay, but just to walk the grounds. She agreed. As they walked beneath the canopy of trees lining the garden, she said softly, "You seem lighter." "I feel it," he replied. "You've shown me a part of myself I'd forgotten." Then she turned and asked, "Why me?" He didn't hesitate. "Because you didn't want anything from me, and somehow you gave me everything." Word began to spread. It started small. Someone at the shelter recognized Edward. A photo taken discreetly. A name whispered to a journalist. By the end of the week, headlines exploded across the internet. Billionaire Edward Harrington, linked to single black mother. From solitude to scandal, the virgin billionaire no more. Social media turned their connection into a feeding frenzy. Naomi's face was plastered on gossip blogs. Keyboard warriors dug through her past, weaponizing poverty against her. Words like gold digger, opportunist, and desperate were thrown like knives. The contrast was too much for the public to ignore. Edward, white, powerful, rich. Naomi, black single mother, formerly homeless. The internet had made up its mind before either of them could speak. Edward tried to shield her. He released a statement. "Naomi is not a project. She is not a story. She is a person I deeply respect, and you will show her the same." But his defense only fueled the fire. Naomi couldn't walk down the street without stares. Her son's school received calls. The shelter was forced to ask her to leave, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. She met Edward one last time at the same garden where he'd first invited her back. "I can't do this," she said. "I'm not built for the spotlight. I've lived too long in the shadows to survive the heat." "You don't have to leave," he pleaded. "Yes, I do. Because I need to disappear before the world turns me into someone I'm not." Tears welled in his eyes, but he nodded. He had never begged anyone for anything, but he begged her now. "Please, just stay in my life, in any way, as a friend, as a ghost, as a poem." She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded paper, and handed it to him. "Then remember me in this." It was a poem. Short, beautiful. "If ever the world forgot my name, let yours be the voice that remembered." She left that night, and he didn't hear from her again. Edward didn't go back to who he was. The mansion didn't feel like home anymore. The silence had changed. It no longer comforted, it haunted. Every room whispered her name, echoed her laughter, carried the warmth she left behind. He sold half his company, founded a foundation focused on housing for single mothers and women of color. He started giving speeches, not about wealth or innovation, but about listening, about seeing people, about love. He stepped down from CEO. His board resisted at first, but his vision was too clear, too full of purpose. And every night, he read her poems. 1 year passed. In a quiet town in Georgia, Edward wandered into a small bookstore. It was raining again, a familiar rhythm. There, on a display table near the front, sat a collection titled "The Weight of Being Seen" by Naomi R. His breath caught. His hands trembled as he picked it up. Every poem was hers, expanded, Refined, radiant, he bought the book and asked the clerk casually, "Is the author local?" The young woman behind the counter smiled. "She works here. Actually, she's in the back." He waited, and then she appeared. Older, calmer, beautiful as ever. She froze when she saw him. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then he said, simply, "They said you vanished. But I knew. Only someone real disappears when the world is fake." She smiled. "Still dramatic, I see. I learned from the best." They didn't kiss. They didn't make promises. They walked out of the bookstore together, side by side, into the rain. Sometimes love doesn't need luxury. It just needs to be seen. Inspired by real stories of Black women, the world chooses not to see.